For as long as the NBA has been in existence, star players have been making their mark on the league with what we call signature moves. They may have not necessarily been the inventor or the originator of the move, but in these cases, they were the first to implement it as a regular and lethal part of their game. The thing is, for various reasons, people often get it wrong when it comes down to these signature moves. We often acknowledge a more recent player, probably for the simple fact that it's what the wider audience is familiar with. But with a more broad understanding of basketball history, we begin to understand how that can be somewhat disrespectful to the players who were doing it before them. Today, we're looking at a handful of players who I believe are incorrectly given credit as the originators of their moves. First off, Steph Curry and the deep three. I'll admit, it's not common for a player to willingly take three-point shots several feet beyond the line, especially in the 90s. But with that being said, there was at least a couple players who were doing it. The first one that comes to mind was the Phoenix Suns' Stan Marley. Marley played for several teams throughout the course of his career, but it was in Phoenix where he truly made a name for himself as he made 3 All-Star teams and was arguably the most reliable 3-and-D type of player in the entire league. To this day, it slightly annoys me when people act like Steph was the first player to willingly shoot several feet beyond the 3-point line. Because even as a younger basketball fan, I remember Marley doing this with regularity in Phoenix. Not as often as players in the modern game, of course, but it was often enough for it to be seen as his own signature move. Many of Marley's bombs were also provided in clutch moments, where his team absolutely needed each point. Although I truly believe that Marley was the pioneer of this, there was a few other players who would do it occasionally as well, like Portland's Rasheed Wallace, Vince Carter, and even Kobe Bryant with his heat check shots. Second up is Dirk Nowitzki and the Dirk Fade. Dirk Nowitzki's fadeaway jumper has become iconic, and given the fact that he's a 7-footer, it's one of the most difficult shots to defend of basketball history. Stylistically, it's very different from the fadeaways of guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. But with that being said, he still wasn't the first player to regularly implement this style into his jump shot. Decades before Dirk ever played his first professional game, Wilt Chamberlain was scoring over the top of centers with that style of a fadeaway. Contrary to popular belief, this was a pretty common method of scoring from Wilt, as it was not only well known among his peers, but there's also entire compilation videos on YouTube of Wilt making these shots. Seeing how he had an extremely high release point, how he's 7 foot 1 inches tall with a 7 foot 8 inch wingspan, and how he had an elite vertical leap, Wilt bolstered arguably the most indefensible fadeaway that the game has ever seen. Even in his prime, when Chamberlain was averaging 50 points a game, many of those baskets were coming from his Dirk-like fadeaway on a nightly basis. Next is Kareem AbdulJabar and the skyhook shot. Speaking of difficult shots to defend, one of the rarest and most famous came from the Lakers captain, Kareem AbdulJabar. The skyhook shot usually comes from a player who plays the center position, and with its sky-high release point, there's very little the opposing player can do to alter it. The vast majority of Kareem's 38,000 points were scored with this move, so obviously it comes as no surprise that it's most often associated with the NBA's all-time leading scorer. The thing is, he wasn't the originator of this move, not even close, as many players were doing it for decades before him. The first superstar to incorporate it into his game and use it with extreme lethality was the first Lakers legend, George Mikan. Not only did the 6'10" big man win numerous championships as the Lakers' leader, but he was also the man who frequently carried the team offensively, and the bread and butter of his offensive arsenal was his skyhook shot. If I haven't yet made my point of just how powerful and integral this shot was to his game, consider this. For 3 straight years, Mikan led the league in scoring with a near 30 points per game average, and he did this at a time when entire teams were averaging around 80 points per night. It was Mikan's dominant skyhook that made that kind of an offensive impact possible. Next is Isaiah Ryder and the East Bay Funk Dunk. The between-the-legs dunk has become a staple of the NBA dunk contest, and it doesn't appear to be leaving anytime soon. Players continuously try to find different variations of this dunk as a means to gain higher scores with the judges. The thing is, the popular belief among basketball fans is that Isaiah Ryder introduced it in 1994, Kobe Bryant solidified it in 1997, and Vince Carter made it iconic in 2000. But before each and every one of those instances, a player did the between-the-legs dunk in a dunk contest, but unfortunately, no one seemed to remember it. It came by a gifted athlete by the name of Orlando Woolridge in 1984. This was actually the first dunk contest of NBA history, and the winner of that contest was actually the Phoenix Suns' Larry Nance. With that being said, it was Woolridge who made history earlier in the contest when he made this East Bay dunk. The response from the audience was somewhat tame, as they didn't realize the history that they just witnessed. Apparently, some of the judges didn't either, as Orlando's dunk only amassed a total of 48 points. This dunk went so under the radar that many basketball fans still believe that Ryder was the originator of it in the NBA. But if you ever hear any fans say such a thing, be sure to remind them of this forgotten gem. Lastly is LeBron James and the chase down block. I will not argue that LeBron isn't the greatest chase down blocker of all time, but on that note, you would be wrong to think that he was the first player to do it with some level of regularity. Among his many skills, chase down blocks were a legitimate part of Hakeem Olajuwon's game, as he had the speed, length, and athleticism to catch up to opposing players and punish them for going up softly. He didn't do it as often as LeBron has, but it was certainly within the Hall of Famer's skill set, and a couple of those instances were in some tremendously significant playoff games. So, do you guys have anything to add? Who's a player who gets credit for a specific move when someone else was doing it before him? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.